3 months had passed since the humiliating encounter with the Valtherans. The New Horizon remained trapped in the outer edge of alien territory, unable to move deeper into space or return home. The crew had turned their prison into a research station, studying everything they could about their captors. Dr. So-Min Park spent her days analyzing the alien language and culture. She had recorded every word and gesture from their meeting with High Commander Zethkala. The more she studied the Valtherans, the more she understood their society was built on a simple belief. Power over the stars meant power over everything else. They don't just use star energy for fuel, she explained to Captain Hyunwoo during their daily briefing. They communicate through stars. They use stellar radiation patterns like we use radio waves. Their entire civilization is connected through a network of stars. Taeho Lee had been studying the damage to their ship's systems. The Valtherans had left behind traces of their technology when they shut down human machines. He spent weeks trying to understand how they could control electronics with thought alone. "It's not magic," he told So-Min one evening as they worked late in the lab. "They're using some kind of energy field that affects electrical circuits. But the way they do it is completely different from how we would approach the problem." Meanwhile, Ji-won Choi, the ship's young astrophysicist, had been looking at their astronomical data in a new way. She was trying to understand how the Valtherans could make their ships move faster than light and communicate across vast distances instantly. "Look at this," she said excitedly one day, calling the others to her workstation. "I've been comparing our star charts with the energy patterns we detected from their ships. There's something strange here." On her screen she showed star maps that went back decades. Earth's astronomers had been watching space for a long time, recording everything they could see. Most of it had seemed like random noise and distant light. "These patterns here?" Ji-won pointed to strange readings from old Earth radio telescopes. "We always thought they were just background radiation or equipment errors. But look what happens when I match them with the Valtheran energy signatures. The patterns lined up perfectly." The noise that Earth scientists had been ignoring for years was actually part of the alien communication network. "We've been listening to their conversations for decades," So-Min realized. "We just didn't know what we were hearing." But Ji-won had found something even more interesting. As she studied the patterns more carefully, she noticed gaps and irregularities that didn't make sense. "Their system isn't complete," she said. "Look here and here. There are frequencies missing from their communications. It's like they're only using half the possible channels." Taeho leaned over her shoulder to study the data. "Maybe they don't need all the frequencies. Or maybe they don't know about them," Ji-won suggested quietly. The idea seemed impossible. How could a civilization that had mastered the stars be missing something that humans could detect with primitive radio telescopes? But the evidence was right there in the data. Over the following weeks, the three scientists worked together to map out the complete frequency range. They discovered that the missing frequencies formed their own pattern, one that was more complex and elegant than anything the Valtherans were using. "If someone could broadcast on these missing frequencies," Min-seok said when they showed him their findings, "they could send messages faster and farther than anything the Valtherans can do. But who would be using frequencies that an advanced alien empire doesn't know about?" So-Min wondered. They got their answer by accident. Min-seok had been experimenting with their communications array, trying to tune it to the missing frequencies. He wasn't expecting to receive anything, but suddenly his equipment came alive with signals. The messages were faint and very old, but they were definitely artificial. Someone had been broadcasting on the hidden frequencies long ago. The signals were complex, layered with mathematics and patterns that hurt to think about. "This isn't random noise," Min-seok said, his voice shaking with excitement. "This is language, but it's not Valtheran. It's something else entirely." Ji-won ran the signals through every analysis program they had. The results made her sit down, heavily in her chair. "These signals are ancient," she said. "They're coming from all over the galaxy, but they were sent thousands of years ago, maybe tens of thousands." "Who was broadcasting before the Valtherans became advanced?" So-Min asked. The answer came from their ship's historical database. Every human exploration ship carried records of Earth's myths, legends, and scientific theories. Hidden among the files was a reference that made them all stop and stare. The predecessors. A mythical race that supposedly lived in the galaxy long before any current civilization. Most scientists thought they were just stories, but some believers claimed the predecessors had left behind traces of their existence. The Veltharans mentioned their history goes back 10,000 years, Somin remembered, but these signals are much older than that. What if the predecessors were real? Jiwan said slowly. What if they built a communication system that the Veltharans never found? What if we're the first ones to discover it because we approach technology differently? They spent the next month decoding the ancient messages. The mathematics was incredibly complex, but it was still mathematics. Human minds, trained to think in numbers and equations, could follow the logical patterns, even when they didn't understand the full meaning. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The predecessors had not just been another alien race. They had been the builders of something vast and amazing. The messages contained fragments of scientific knowledge that made human theories look primitive and Veltharan technology look like simple tools. But the most important discovery came when they realized the messages were not just random broadcasts. They were coordinates. The predecessors had left behind a map hidden in the stars themselves. They built something, Jiwan whispered, as she stared at the star map taking shape on her screen. Something big, and they hid the instructions for finding it in frequencies that only someone thinking like humans would notice. Captain Hyunwoo studied the data his crew had gathered. For months, the Veltharans had treated humans like ignorant children. They had assumed that advanced technology meant superior understanding, but here was proof that different approaches to knowledge could reveal different truths. "Sir," Somin said carefully, "should we tell them what we've found?" Hyunwoo thought about High Commander Zethkala's contempt and arrogance. The aliens were so certain of their superiority that they couldn't imagine learning anything from primitives. But they had been searching for proof of the predecessors for their entire history. Not yet, he decided. First, we need to understand more about what we've discovered. If we're right about this, it changes everything. And if we're wrong, he didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. If they were wrong, they would just confirm what the Veltharans already believed about human foolishness. But if they were right, they had found something that would force the entire galaxy to see humanity in a completely different way. The universe suddenly seemed much larger and more mysterious than any of them had imagined. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the legacy of an ancient race waited to be discovered by minds that thought in ways no one expected. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the stars through the main window. After 18 months of travel, they had finally reached the edge of known space. His crew of 50 humans had come farther from Earth than anyone before them. They were explorers, scientists, and dreamers who wanted to find other life among the stars. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," said Min Seok-yoon from his station. The young communications officer looked worried as he stared at his screens. "There's something big out there. Really big." Hyunwoo walked over to look at the data. The numbers showed massive energy signatures coming from a nearby star system. Whatever was creating those readings had technology far beyond anything humans had ever built. "Should we turn back?" asked Tae-ho Lee, the ship's engineer. He was a smart man who could fix almost anything, but even he looked nervous about what they might find. Before Hyunwoo could answer, the space around them began to change. The stars seemed to bend and twist. A huge shadow fell across their ship, blocking out the light from distant suns. The New Horizon shook as something enormous appeared in front of them. The alien ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It looked like it was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. The ship was at least 10 times bigger than the New Horizon. Strange patterns of energy danced across its surface like lightning trapped in glass. "My God," whispered Dr. So-min Park from her station. As the ship's expert on languages and cultures, she had studied every theory about what aliens might be like. Nothing had prepared her for this. A voice filled their bridge. It spoke without words, placing thoughts directly into their minds. The voice was cold and proud, like someone talking to insects. "Primitive vessel. You will stop your movement. You will prepare for examination." Hyun-woo tried to respond, but before he could speak, their ship's systems began shutting down. The engines went quiet. The weapons powered off. Even the lights dimmed as some invisible force took control of their technology. "They're pulling us in," Taeho said. His hands moved quickly over his controls, but nothing responded. "I can't stop. It's like they're just turning off our machines with their thoughts." The New Horizon moved toward the alien ship without any power from its own engines. Through the crystal walls of the alien vessel, they could see figures moving inside. Beings were tall and thin, with bodies that seemed to be made of the same crystal as their ship. They moved with grace and purpose, as if they owned the entire universe. A beam of light surrounded the human ship. Suddenly, Hyun-woo and his senior officers found themselves standing in a large room inside the alien vessel. The walls were smooth and glowing. The air felt different, charged with energy that made their skin tingle. 3 aliens stood before them. The one in the center was taller than the others, with crystals that sparkled like diamonds. When it looked at them, Hyun-woo felt like a child being examined by a teacher. "I am High Commander Zethkala of the Veltheran Empire," the alien said without moving its mouth. "We have ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 of your years. You are from the small blue world we have observed at the edge of this sector." So-min stepped forward and bowed politely. "We come in peace. We are explorers from Earth. We hope to learn about other civilizations and share knowledge." The High Commander made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was cold and cruel. "Share knowledge? You are barely more than animals. Your ships burn chemical fuel like primitive fire. Your minds cannot even speak without making noise with your mouths. You know nothing of the true forces that shape the universe." The other aliens nodded in agreement. One of them waved a hand and images appeared in the air around them. The images showed human cities, human wars, human struggles. They saw Earth from space, looking small and alone. "Look at yourselves," said another alien. "You fight each other over resources while sitting on a single small world. You have not learned to harvest the power of stars. You cannot speak across the void without crude machines. You are savages playing with metal toys." Hyun-woo felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We may be young compared to you, but we are not savages. We have art, music, science, and dreams. We have come here to learn, not to fight." "Dreams," the High Commander repeated with contempt. "The universe has no place for dreams. Only power matters. Only knowledge of the true forces that bind the stars together. You understand nothing of this." The alien raised one crystal hand, and suddenly the humans could see into space around them. Dozens of alien ships moved between the stars like fish, swimming through water. They watched energy being pulled from suns and shaped into tools and weapons. They saw communications flying between distant worlds faster than light itself. "This is civilization," Zethkala said. "This is what thinking beings can accomplish. You crawl between a few rocks in your tiny system and think you have achieved something great." So-min tried again to establish some connection. "Perhaps we could learn from each other. Different species might see the universe in different ways." "There is only one way to see the universe," the High Commander replied. "The correct way. The way of power and mastery over the forces of creation. You will return to your small world and stay there. You are not ready to walk among the stars." The aliens gestured, and the humans found themselves back on their own ship. The alien vessel was already moving away, leaving them alone in space. Their systems slowly came back online, but many of their instruments had been damaged or changed. "Captain," Minsuk said quietly, "they've locked our navigation system. We can only go back toward Earth. They've trapped us out here on the edge of their territory." Hyun-woo looked at his crew. He saw anger, fear, and disappointment in their faces. They had come so far and dreamed so big, only to be dismissed like children who had wandered into an adult's room. "Sir," Taeho said, "what do we do now?" Hyun-woo stared out at the stars where the alien ship had disappeared. The Veltherans thought humans were primitive and worthless. They had the power to enforce that belief, but something deep inside him refused to accept it. "We learn," he said finally. "We watch. We study everything we can about them, and we prove them wrong." None of them knew it yet, but the seeds of that proof were already hidden in the data they had collected. The knowledge that would change, everything lay waiting in their computers, in their observations, and in the unique way human minds saw the universe around them. Dr. Somin Park had been working for 16 hours straight when she finally cracked the language code. The ancient predecessor messages were written in mathematics, but not the kind humans normally used. Every equation was also a word, and every formula told a story. "I understand now," she said to Ji-won, who was sleeping at her workstation. The predecessors didn't just communicate with math. They thought in math. Their entire language is based on the patterns that hold the universe together. Ji-won woke up and looked at the translations covering Somin's screens. The messages were fragments of something much larger, like pages torn from a vast book about the secrets of space and time. They're teaching, Ji-won realized. These aren't just messages, they're lessons. Look at this sequence here. It starts with simple energy patterns and builds up to something incredibly complex. The two women called the others, and soon the entire science team was gathered around So-min's workstation. The predecessor messages were like nothing they had ever seen. Each lesson built on the previous one, showing how energy moved through space, how matter formed, and how consciousness could shape reality itself. This section talks about something they call stellar harmonics, So-min explained. It's like music, but played with the energy of entire stars. The predecessors could make stars sing together across vast distances. Min-seok studied the technical details with growing excitement. "If this is real, it means we could communicate instantly across the galaxy. Not just faster than light, but immediate. No delay at all." "But look at this part," Ji-won said, pointing to a disturbing section of the text. "They're warning about something that hunts civilizations that become too advanced." The message was clear once they understood the mathematical language. The predecessors had been destroyed by entities they called the Void Devourers. These creatures fed on stellar energy and left empty space where star systems used to be. "They're coming back," So-min translated from the final message. "The pattern repeats every 100,000 years. The Void Devourers return to harvest the energy that civilizations have gathered." Tae-ho ran the timeline calculations. If the predecessors were destroyed 60,000 years ago, that means the Devourers are due to return in about 40,000 years. Ji-won finished. "Unless the pattern is speeding up." They worked through the night translating more messages and piecing together the full warning. The predecessors had left behind more than just communications. They had built a network of hidden installations throughout the galaxy, each one containing knowledge and tools that could help future civilizations fight the Void Devourers. But there was a problem. The installations were locked, hidden behind energy barriers that only responded to specific frequency patterns. The predecessors had scattered the unlock codes throughout their communication network, but most of the messages had been lost over thousands of years. "We have some of the codes," Min-seok said, studying the patterns they had decoded, "but not all of them. We need to find more messages. Or we need to activate the network we have and see what happens," Ji-won suggested. Captain Hyun-woo had been listening quietly to their discoveries. The weight of what they had learned pressed down on him like a heavy stone. Humanity had stumbled onto knowledge that could save or doom the entire galaxy. "Can we test it safely?" he asked. Tae-ho had been building a device based on the predecessor specifications. It looked like a crystal sculpture connected to their ship's power systems. "I think so. The theory says that if we broadcast on the complete frequency range, any nearby predecessor installation should respond. And if the Valthorans detect our transmission, they won't understand it," So-min said confidently. "Their technology can't access the frequencies we're using. To them, it will just look like background noise." They decided to try a limited test. Min-seok powered up the device while the others monitored every scanner and detector they had. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space around them began to change. Stars that had looked normal suddenly showed new patterns of energy. Invisible structures became visible as they responded to the predecessor frequencies. Ancient installations, hidden for thousands of years, began to wake up throughout the local star system. "My God," whispered Jiwan, "they're everywhere. The predecessors built installations around every star in this region. The installations sent back their own signals, confirming that they were active and ready. But they were also sending warnings. The mathematical language was urgent and frightened. They're detecting something," So-Min translated rapidly. "Something big is moving at the edge of the galaxy. The automatic systems think it might be." She stopped reading and stared at her screen in horror. "What is it?" Hyunwoo demanded. "The Void Devourers. They're not supposed to return for 40,000 years, but the sensors are detecting their approach now. The installations calculate they'll reach this galaxy in less than 1,000 years." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 1,000 years seemed like a long time, but for galactic civilizations, it was barely enough time to prepare for a threat that had destroyed the predecessors. "We have to warn the Veiltharans," Minseok said. "They won't believe us," Taeho replied. "They think we're primitives. Why would they listen to warnings from savages?" "Because we have proof," Jiwan said firmly. "We can show them the predecessor network. We can demonstrate technology that they've never seen before." So-Min was still translating the flood of information coming from the ancient installations. "There's more. The predecessors left behind weapons and defenses, but they require cooperation between multiple species to operate. No single civilization can fight the Void Devourers alone." The predecessors knew this would happen, Hyunwoo realized. They planned for younger races to find their network and work together. That's why they hid the codes and frequencies that different species would discover in different ways. The test had revealed more than they expected. The predecessor network was vast and complex, spanning thousands of star systems. But it was also incomplete. Many installations had been destroyed over the millennia, and others had simply worn out waiting for someone to activate them. "We need the Veiltharans," Jiwan said. "Their technology could help repair and expand the network, but they need us too. We're the ones who can read the predecessor language and understand their warning." As if responding to their thoughts, one of the installations sent a new message. This one was different from the others, more personal and direct. "To the young races who find this message," So-Min translated, "we failed to stop the darkness, but we have given you the tools to succeed where we could not. Trust in your differences. Your unique ways of thinking are your greatest weapons. The Devourers expect civilizations to follow predictable patterns. Surprise them." The message continued with technical specifications for weapons and defenses that could work against entities that fed on stellar energy. But the most important part was the emphasis on cooperation and unexpected approaches. "They're telling us that being different is an advantage," Hyunwoo said. "The Veiltharans think there's only one right way to understand the universe, but the predecessors are saying that diversity of thought is what's needed to win." Outside their ship, the hidden network continued to activate. Ancient machines that had slept for thousands of years were waking up, preparing for a war that was still centuries away. And at the center of it all, a small human ship held the keys to the galaxy's survival. The question now was whether they could convince the proud Veiltharans to listen to the warnings of people they considered barely more than animals. The fate of every living thing in the galaxy might depend on that conversation. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood before the main view screen as the Veiltharan fleet approached. 3 crystal ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built, moved through space like predators closing in on prey. High Commander Zeth Kala had not been pleased to receive a transmission from the primitive humans he had dismissed months ago. "They're scanning us," reported Minseok from his station. "Much more aggressively than before." "Let them," Hyunwoo said calmly. "They won't find anything they can understand." The predecessor device that Taeho had built was hidden in plain sight, disguised as a simple communications array. To Veiltharan sensors, it looked like primitive human technology. They had no idea they were looking at something that could unlock secrets their civilization had searched for across millennia. Dr. So-Min Park checked her translations one final time. The proof was overwhelming, but she knew the aliens would resist believing it. Their entire sense of superiority was built on the idea that they understood the universe better than anyone else. "Captain," Dayuno said from her workstation, "I've been studying Veltharan culture and psychology. If we want them to listen, we need to approach this carefully. Their pride is their weakness." Daun was the ship's expert on cultures and societies. She had spent months analyzing every interaction with the aliens, looking for ways to communicate effectively with beings who saw humans as inferior. "They respect power and ancient knowledge above everything else," she continued. "If we present this as human discovery, they'll reject it automatically. But if we present it as something we found that belongs to someone greater than both our species, the predecessors," Hyunwoo understood. "We're not claiming to be superior. We're saying, we found a message from their most sacred mystery." The lead Veltharan ship sent a boarding beam, and within moments High Commander Zethkala materialized on their bridge with 2 guards. The alien commander looked even more imposing than before, his crystal body glowing with barely contained energy. "Explain quickly why you have contacted us, primitives," Zethkala said without ceremony. "Our patience with your species grows thin." So Min stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "High Commander, we have discovered something that we believe you need to see. We have found evidence of the predecessors." For the first time since they had met him, the alien commander showed surprise. His crystal body flickered, and his mental voice carried a note of disbelief. "Impossible. We have searched for proof of the predecessors for 10,000 years. If such evidence existed, we would have found it." "With respect," Ji-won said, joining So-min, "you were looking in the wrong place. You were searching with your technology using your methods, but the predecessors hid their messages where only different thinking would find them." Zethkala's guards moved closer, sensing their commander's growing anger. "You dare suggest that primitive minds could discover what Veltharan science could not?" "We suggest that the predecessors planned for this," Hyunwoo said firmly. "They knew that different species would develop different ways of understanding the universe. They hid their knowledge in places that would require multiple perspectives to find." "Prove it," the High Commander demanded. Tae-ho activated the predecessor device. Immediately, the space around them filled with energy patterns that the Veltharans could detect but not create. The hidden network of ancient installations began responding throughout the star system, sending signals that lit up Veltharan sensors like fireworks. Zethkala stared at the readings in shock. His proud bearing cracked as impossible data flooded. His ship's computers. "What is this? How are you generating these energy signatures?" "We're not generating them," So-min explained. "We're activating them. The predecessors built a network of installations throughout the galaxy, but they locked them behind frequency patterns that your technology can't access." She showed him the mathematical translations, the ancient warnings, and the proof that the legendary predecessors had been real. With each piece of evidence, the alien commander's certainty crumbled further. "This cannot be," he whispered. "If the predecessors existed, if they left behind such knowledge, why would they hide it from superior civilizations like ours?" "Because they knew what was coming," Ji-won said quietly. "They knew about the Void Devourers." The name hit Zethkala like a physical blow. Every Veltharan child learned stories about the darkness that devours stars, but they were considered myths, warnings about the dangers of reaching too far into the unknown. "The Void Devourers are legend," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dayun activated another part of the display, showing the predecessor warnings and the evidence of approaching danger. "They're real, and they're coming back. The ancient network is detecting their approach at the edge of the galaxy. In approximately 1,000 years," So-min added, "they will reach this region of space. The predecessors were destroyed because they faced this threat alone. They left behind this network so that future civilizations could work together to survive." Zethkala was silent for a long moment, processing information that shattered everything he believed about the universe. His guards looked confused and frightened as their invincible commander struggled with concepts that challenged their entire worldview. "Even if this is true," he said finally, "what could primitives like you contribute to such a defense? You lack the technology, the understanding, the power to fight cosmic entities." "We have something you don't," Hyunwoo said. We can read their language, we can understand their warnings, and we think differently than you do. To demonstrate, Tejo showed the alien commander how human mathematical thinking had revealed patterns in the predecessor network that Valtheran sensors couldn't detect. The same primitive approach that the aliens mocked had unlocked secrets that advanced technology missed. The predecessors designed this system to require cooperation, Dayun explained. No single species has all the tools needed to operate their defenses. You have the power and the advanced technology. We have the key to understanding their instructions. And there are others, So-Min added. The network is sending signals to installation clusters throughout the galaxy. Other young civilizations are probably discovering parts of this system right now, each one bringing their own unique perspective to the puzzle. Zethkala looked at his own guards, seeing uncertainty in their crystalline faces. The foundation of Valtheran superiority was cracking, replaced by the terrifying knowledge that they needed help from species they had dismissed as worthless. You are saying that our destiny is tied to yours, he said slowly, that we must work with primitives, or face extinction. We're saying that survival requires all of us, Hyunwoo corrected. The predecessors weren't more advanced than you because they were superior beings. They were advanced because they learned to combine the strengths of many different species. New signal came through the predecessor network, this one from a distant installation that had just been activated. The mathematical message was brief but clear. Other species across the galaxy were beginning to discover the ancient warnings. The network is awakening everywhere, Jiwon reported. The predecessors planned for this moment when young civilizations would be ready to work together against the coming darkness. Sub-Commander Neithfin, one of Zethkala's guards, spoke for the first time. High Commander, if this is true, then everything we believed about our superiority was wrong. We are not the masters of the galaxy. We are just one part of a larger pattern. The truth was painful for the proud Valtherans, but it was also liberating. They no longer had to carry the burden of galactic leadership alone. The universe was offering them allies if they could swallow their pride enough to accept help from primitives. Zethkala made his decision with the weight of his entire civilization behind it. Show us everything, he commanded. If we are to face this threat together, then we must learn to understand each other. For the first time since humanity had encountered the Valtherans, they were speaking as equals. 2 years had passed since the revelation that changed everything. The combined human Valtharan research station orbited a star system that had once been empty space. Now it bustled with activity as ships from both civilizations worked to understand and repair the ancient predecessor network. Captain Hyunwoo Kim walked through corridors that would have seemed impossible before first contact. Human engineers worked alongside Valtheran technicians, their different approaches to problem-solving creating solutions that neither species could have developed alone. Captain, called Jiwon Choi from the main laboratory. You need to see this. The laboratory was the heart of their joint research effort. Predecessor artifacts covered every surface, their crystal structures humming with energy that both species were slowly learning to understand. Dayuno worked with a young Valtharan scientist named Yulthan, translating ancient texts that required both human intuition and alien mathematical precision to decode. We've made a breakthrough with the defensive systems, Jiwon explained, gesturing to a holographic display. The predecessors didn't just build weapons to fight the Void Devourers. They built something much more clever. The display showed a network of installations throughout the galaxy, each one connected to others through quantum channels that existed outside normal spacetime. When activated properly, the network could do something that no conventional technology could achieve. They built a reality anchor, So-Min Park said, joining the group. She had been working with Valtheran linguists to understand the deeper meanings in predecessor texts. The Void Devourers exist partially outside our universe. That's how they can consume stellar energy so efficiently. But this network can lock them into our reality, making them vulnerable. Taeho Lee emerged from behind a massive predecessor machine, his clothes covered in crystal dust. The engineering is incredible. They use quantum entanglement on a galactic scale. Every star in the network becomes part of a single, massive calculation that redefines the laws of physics in local space. But it requires precise coordination, added Sub-Commander Nithvan, who had become their primary Veltheran liaison. If even one installation is out of sync, the entire system fails. The discovery had been made possible by combining human creativity with Veltharan power and precision. Humans could see patterns and possibilities that the aliens missed, while Veltharans could manipulate energy in ways that made human technology look primitive. "There's more," Dawn said excitedly. "We've been in contact with 17 other species across the galaxy. They've all found parts of the network, and they're all contributing pieces to the puzzle." The galaxy was awakening to the truth the predecessors had hidden for thousands of years. Young civilizations were discovering ancient installations and learning to work together in ways that their individual pride and fear had never allowed before. The Cathani contribute biological computers that can process quantum calculations, Somin reported. The Threx have developed energy manipulation techniques that complement Veltharan technology. The Zafari understand time mechanics that help synchronize the network across vast distances. "And the humans?" asked Zethkala as he entered the EA laboratory. The High Commander had changed dramatically over the past 2 years. His arrogance had been replaced by curiosity and respect for the diverse approaches different species brought to solving impossible problems. "We see the connections," Hyunwoo answered. "We find the patterns that tie everything together. We ask the questions that others don't think to ask." It was true. Human minds seemed uniquely suited to understanding the predecessor philosophy of cooperation and diversity. While other species excelled in specific areas, humans could adapt and synthesize ideas from multiple sources. "The first Void Devourer scouts have been detected at the Galactic Edge," Minseok announced from his monitoring station. "The ancient warning systems estimate full invasion in less than 50 years, not the 1,000 we originally calculated." The room fell silent. The enemy was arriving much faster than expected, but the galaxy was more prepared than the predecessors had ever been. "Are we ready?" Zethkala asked. Teho looked at the readings from installations across known space. "The network is at 60% operational capacity. Not perfect, but much better than when the predecessors faced this threat alone." "And we're still learning," Jiwan added. "Every day we discover new capabilities, new ways to combine our different strengths." The past 2 years had transformed not just human-Veltheran relations, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. Species that had never communicated before were working together on projects that spanned multiple star systems. Trade routes that had been protected by military force were now maintained through cooperative agreements. "Captain," Daun said quietly, "do you think we can win?" Hyunwoo looked around the laboratory at humans and Veltharans working side by side, at alien technologies being operated by human intuition, at solutions emerging from combinations that no single species could have imagined. "The predecessors left us more than just weapons and warnings," he said. "They left us a blueprint for civilization. They showed us that diversity isn't weakness. It's the universe's way of solving problems that seem impossible." A new signal came through the quantum network, this one from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Another species had just activated their local installation cluster and was requesting contact with the growing alliance. 23 species now, Somin reported, and they're all different. Each one brings something unique to the network. Zethkala studied the galactic map showing the expanding network of cooperation. "We called you savages because you were different from us," he said to the humans. "We thought difference meant inferiority. But the predecessors knew that difference means possibility. The Void Devourers succeeded before because they faced civilizations that were all similar in their advancement," Nithvan observed. "They had developed predictable patterns of response. But this," he gestured at the chaotic but beautiful complexity of the multi-species alliance. "This is something new." Outside the station, construction crews were building the first generation of hybrid ships that combined technologies from multiple species. Human creativity, Veltharan energy manipulation, Cathani biological systems, and contributions from a dozen other civilizations were creating vessels that were more than the sum of their parts. "We're not just preparing for war," Jiwan realized. "We're creating something the galaxy has never seen before, a true cooperative civilization. The predecessor network had been designed not just to defeat the Void Devourers, but to forge the young species of the galaxy into something stronger and more unified than any single civilization could become alone. They never intended to stop the Devourers permanently, Da-Un said, understanding the deeper pattern. They wanted to create allies strong enough to help the next galaxy, and the one after that. The network isn't just a weapon, it's a school. Years of struggle and preparation lay ahead. The Void Devourers would arrive, and the battle would test every alliance and innovation the combined species could create. But for the first time since discovering the ancient warnings, Hyunwoo felt truly confident. The galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated civilizations competing for resources and dominance. It was becoming a community of different minds working toward a common goal. And that community had been made possible by the very differences that species like the Veltherans had once seen as signs of inferiority. In the end, the universe's greatest strength wasn't the power to destroy or the ability to control. It was the capacity to learn, to grow, and to find wisdom in perspectives that no single mind could achieve alone. The stars themselves seemed to sing with possibilities as the great work continued, preparing for a future that would be shaped not by the strongest or the smartest, but by those who had learned to listen to the secrets that only cooperation could reveal.